I'm Owen Hughes. It's time for a road trip. Join me as we tour Eastern Canada. Our tour begins in Toronto, moves on to Ottawa, east to Quebec City, and circles back to Montreal. It's a beautiful morning as we head to world-famous Niagara Falls. Some 12 million tourists visit each year. The falls are bordered by both the U.S. and Canada. We are on the Hornblower cruise boat located on the Canadian side. Originated from glacier activity over 12,000 years ago, the three falls are formed by the Niagara River, which drains Lake Erie into Lake Ontario. The tallest fall is just under 190 feet. Vast hydropower produced here is shared by the United States and Canada. Some 700,000 gallons of water per second travel down the falls. From here, we head to Niagara-on-the-Lake, a quaint 19th century village. With its flowered streets and welcoming restaurants, is a tourist favorite. Perfect for our lunchtime stop. It is also the heart of Ontario Province wine country. But it's now time to head back to Toronto to wind down an enjoyable first day. Canada's largest city of nearly 3 million people, Toronto is a mecca for tech, fashion, manufacturing, and entertainment. But it's up and at 'em. Early tomorrow, leaving Toronto and heading east. The next morning, we're on the road to Ottawa, a nearly 5-hour drive. Along the way, the Big Apple is our first rest stop, with all that is apple as you can imagine. We continue with a lunch stop in Kingston and its grand 19th century buildings. The overcast weather doesn't dampen our boat cruise of 1,000 islands adjacent to Kingston. There are over 1,800 islands on the St. Lawrence River, split between the U.S. and Canada. To qualify as an island, year-round above water level land within the river channel must have at least 1 square foot and 2 living trees. Mostly used for summer vacation homes, all shapes and sizes exist. A key highlight is Bolt Castle on Hart Island, built by George Bolt in 1900 for his wife. However, the then general manager of the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York stopped construction due to the sudden death of his wife in 1904. Through the years, and after complete restoration, fee-based tours of the grounds are available to the public. The funeral for Queen Elizabeth was being televised the next morning. We are now in Ottawa, Canada's capital, and are taking a city tour. We stop at the Ornamental Gardens for a short stroll. The 8-acre grounds are filled with perennials in brilliant colors. The Notre Dame Cathedral Basilica is our next stop. It was designated a National Historic Site of Canada in 1990. A riveting display of Canadian religious art adorns the interior. The basilica was constructed in 1846 and is the oldest and largest church in Ottawa. As the country's capital, touring Parliament Hill was our next stop. A stroll along Wellington Street allows for excellent views of the Gothic, Revival-style buildings. Adjacent to Rideau Canal, North America's oldest and continuously operated canal system, are key government buildings where critical Senate and parliamentary decisions for Canada take place. With the Centennial Flame in the forefront, the office of the Prime Minister, Canada's top official, sits across the street. A favorite attraction is around the corner, the changing of the guard at the War Memorial, a must-see in Ottawa. To honor fallen soldiers, sentries have stood guard at the War Memorial since 2006. Serving one-hour shifts, the sentries are chosen from military units across Canada.
People that live in Ottawa have good jobs, it's a good quality of life, it's a great place to raise a family. It has about 1 million people, and most of the people that work here work for the federal government. And so Ottawa's a really well-kept secret to a lot of people.
After leaving Ottawa, a pleasant surprise awaits the next morning. The rustic Castle Lodge Bed and Breakfast is our first stop en route to Quebec City. Nicole and Francois Collier are our gracious hosts, and Francois is a retired Royal Canadian mounted policeman. The breakfast treats and presentation highlighted our visit. This 28-acre oasis was a great way to start the day. Now in French-speaking Quebec province, we stop for lunch at the famed Sugar Shack at Trois Rivières, or Three Rivers, where maple syrup is made.
What we have here on the photo is the maple water. This is what we're going to harvest from mid-March to mid-April every year.
And a festive restaurant resides. This was a fun stop as we make our way to Quebec City. The next morning we tour Quebec City.
So today we're going to go around.
That's our tour guide in period wear.
The city is very, very rich. A lot of history connected to a lot of world events directly or indirectly.
The city is the provincial capital, and French is the prominent language. Inspired by the Louvre in Paris, the flagless Parliament building is our first stop.
That explains why there's no Canadian flag on the Parliament. We don't have to, it's not an obligation.
As a UNESCO World Heritage Site, fortified Old Quebec is the heart and soul of the city. With its cobblestone streets and rich history, you feel like you're walking in Europe. The Quebec flag was developed in 1948 as a sign of French-Canadian identity. While charming shops and restaurants adorn the streets, lifelike murals and sidewalk musicians add a unique ambiance. Chateau Frontenac, known as the most photographed hotel in the world, was built by the Canadian Pacific Railroad Company in 1893. Franklin D. Roosevelt and Winston Churchill discussed Allied strategies here during World War II. In 1981, the hotel was designated a National Historic Site. As we wind down our tour, we head to Montreal, Canada's second largest city, with nearly 4.5 million people. After the nearly 200-mile drive, a leisurely stroll through the port area with its historic buildings and cobblestone streets, including market areas and cafes, gives one the fresh air and relaxation needed. And after dinner, a Montreal-style creme brulee hits the spot to end the evening. Montreal sits on an island just off the St. Lawrence River. French explorers Jacques Cartier and then Samuel de Champlain first discovered the area in the mid-15 and early 1600s. The city remains a commercial and cultural center in Canada and was named a UNESCO City of Design in 2006. It's the only Canadian city to hold a Summer Olympics, held here in 1976. Montreal is one of the world's top cities for university students, with an array of higher learning institutions within a 5-mile radius. A walking tour in Old Montreal brings us to the Notre Dame Basilica. This dramatic masterpiece of Gothic Revival architecture was originally constructed in 1824 by Irish-American architect James MacDonald. Originally an Anglican, MacDonald converted to Catholicism on his deathbed and is thus the only person buried in the church's crypt. Considered one of the most visited monuments in North America, the Basilica has nearly 11 million visitors per year. This 4-city, 10-day tour was awe-inspiring, enchanting from old world to new, and an educational getaway, with culture to architecture, recharging my senses and making me wonder, where will the road take me next?